Life in the UK would be so much easier if we had onsen. I don't think I could withstand the Japanese work. I had a very complicated relationship with Singaporeans. Are you for this side or for that side? That pisses me off a bit more than the Japanese.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So this episode is with Justin again, and this is the second half bit of the interview with Justin, and we unpack about how Justin came about to accepting his Chinese Singaporean heritage, his background, because he spent his whole life in Japan and kind of neglecting his own heritage because he had a bitterness. He had this bitterness towards Singapore. So we discover and go deep into what's happening with his life, with reconnecting with Singapore, with the Asian Chinese culture. So please enjoy. Let's go.
People don't really think I'm from America though.
Right.
So actually a lot of people have increased awareness of people from international schools.
Okay.
so I think
God.
I know. So I think people do when they hear my accent, which I would say Ace is a kind of a general American. Which is quite easy, I think, for people to understand, even non-native English speakers.
Right. And when you tell people your background, what's the reaction usually?
So I tell people, again, I'm Singaporean, but I grew up in Japan. But I went to an international school. Because oftentimes they follow that up with, oh, your English is so good. And that pisses me off a bit more than the Japanese.
Right. Why does it piss you off?
Because English is my first language. Just because I look Asian, right?
That doesn't
mean that English is my second language.
Yeah. But you just said you grew up in Japan.
But I grew up in Japan. So understandably, they might think, okay, if they've interacted with other Japanese people, who have an accented English, for example, or Japanese accented English, because all Englishes are accented. Japanese accented English, then I understand that question, which is why I often add, I went to an international school. And that kind of very concisely and neatly provides a justification or explanation for who I am, for them to accept me. But in a similar way to how I kind of was confident in my Japanese, speaking to Japanese people, I think when they hear me speak English and my communication, they communicate with me, they transcend that initial, oh, but you look Asian, where are you from kind of thing. And then they just treat me as another person who is fluent in English, who knows the culture.
Have you interacted with other Singaporeans in the UK?
I have, yes.
How was that experience?
In uni, I made a couple of Singaporean friends. And this is where, I would like to say I'm thankful that I've grown up and matured. Before I explained that when I went back to Singapore for the army, I had a very complicated relationship with Singaporeans. But meeting Singaporeans in the UK, they're great people, of course they are. Similarly, they're great people everywhere. And it was just that my negative attitude affected the way I viewed them. Whereas obviously I have amazing Singaporean friends, and so I would say that they have been very, very helpful in me beginning to grasp a bit more and claim and embrace my Singaporean identity a bit more. So that's been something that has only occurred, I think, in the past 5 or 6 years. It's the most recent development in my identity journey.
Accepting your own people, your heritage, your background,
Until my mid-20s, I didn't like saying I'm Singaporean.
What would you say?
I grew up in Japan. I'm from Japan.
Right.
The good thing is, like I said, English is the main language in Singapore, so I can communicate with them. But I don't speak Chinese. Which is technically my mother tongue. Both my parents speak Mandarin. But my mom's side speaks Hainanese. And my dad's side speaks Cantonese. So that's their dialects. I don't speak any of those. I know that there is a bit of, I think, disappointment perhaps in the fact that I'm unable to communicate or speak in Chinese.
But they didn't teach you Chinese, right?
No, because when my parents and I moved to Japan, I was 3 months old.
Yeah.
So they were busy learning the language.
Right,
They were
right.
busy trying to acculturate into
Yeah.
Japan as well. So I don't blame that at
No,
all.
of course not. But how often do you see your relatives in Singapore? この間言ってたよね. You
この間言った
were just in
そう
Singapore.
先月。
どうだった when you went back to Singapore last month? Was it?
Last month I went back for Chinese New Year.
So how was that?
It was really positive, I would say. And again, it's probably the fact that I have matured as a person. Amazing, thank you. And I went back with a bigger desire to want to connect to my ethnic heritage, not so much my culture. Well, it's complicated, but specifically ethnic, my Chinese ethnic heritage, which is something that I have not been in touch with, that I don't have much ties to. But I also don't want to ignore that side of me. And so I went back with a thing of, I want to learn more. I want to make an effort to get in touch with that side. So I think that things change over 10 years. Going back to serve in the army with a more negative attitude towards all the way till just last month, going back with a more positive attitude. And it just shows you that life really, really can change so much just if you are able to recognize and shift your perspective.
American education, you spoke American accent.
Yeah.
And your knowledge of culture was basically American, right?
Yes.
So how was it like going to the States for the first time?
It wasn't particularly significant, to be honest. I've been about 4 or 5 times, but each time it was only for a short holiday. So I've never actually lived in America. I would go for like friends' weddings, for example. I think America is so broad, isn't it? You go to Cali, you go to New York, you go to Chicago, it's all completely different. So the last thing I want to do is like generalize and say this was that. But when I meet Americans outside of America,
are you like, you're my people?
I do actually really connect with them very quickly and easily. I do love their friendliness. I'm a words of affirmation person, for those who know kind of love languages. And yes, in comparison to Brits and Japanese people who maybe aren't as vocal in their affection, I love it when I meet Americans and I get hugs, like genuine hugs and like words of affection and of affirmation. And so I do like meeting Americans, and I actually feel a bit of affinity with them just because of my upbringing.
Would you ever leave the UK now to live somewhere else? Japan, Singapore, America, wherever?
That is $1 million question. I can only speak from where I am currently because, life happens and it throws curveballs and who knows what happens. But I do love it here. I still do after 11 years. And my hope is to settle in the UK. I would like to. I have toyed with the idea of going back to Japan because, as I think I've shared, Japan has such a huge place in my heart. Japanese is one of my heart languages as well. I miss it dearly. I really do. I have such good memories of Japan. But I think what I've come to realize, and this is really recent development, even in just the past few months, my notion of life in Japan is rooted in a very specific time and is more based on a nostalgic yearning than reality. If I were to go back to Japan, I wouldn't have the same friends.
Right.
And the reason why I say that is because a lot of people have moved. That's part and parcel
Even my
of
sister will be
exactly.
here.
That's part and parcel of our community, right? So I know that I can't go back to the good old days. Now I think there's such conveniences of living in Japan. The quality of life is top notch, 100%. Life in the UK would be so much easier if we had onsen or sento, right? It's so cold.
Yeah, it is.
It's such a cheap and easy way of warming up.
Or like bonding with people even.
Of
like
bonding
going to the
with people,
onsen with your friends.
exactly.
Like that's the best way to
More
bond.
skinship, and obviously the the convenience shops, just the public transport system is the top in the world, all of that things. But I think I would struggle to fit back exclusively into a Japanese societal mold. And what I mean by that is, I think one, for example, if I were to work in the Japanese company, I don't think I could withstand the Japanese work life.
俺2日で死ぬと思う。
Even my past experiences of working in Japanese companies, I was working in international departments within the company, which wasn't the same as working in the Japanese company. So I think, things like that. I also would struggle to fit within a very patriarchal, hierarchical society. Again, I just cannot, and I feel like that would force me to negate a huge part of who I am. I think I have experienced a degree of freedom, of thought, of speech, of just being able to explore without any restraints in a healthy way in the UK that I would struggle to fit back into the Japanese mold. I feel, in the UK, yes, you don't have, Japanese public transport system. You don't have onsen. You don't have the konbinis, to the extent. But there is a sense of freedom, ability to live freely, to breathe. As of now, I don't foresee myself moving. Singapore is also highly unlikely. I think my parents will be based there once they retire, so I'll visit frequently. But just because I didn't grow up there, I don't foresee myself living there either. And America, lots of things I love about America, but I think I would struggle to live in the States. I think it is a bit extreme in a lot of ways. And one of the things I've really valued a bit in the UK is this ability to be more nuanced. In America, things are polarized, right? It's just, you take either it's black or white. I love being in the gray.
Oh God, because we grew up in the gray.
Because we grew up in the gray. We are liminal people. But in the UK, there is space to be in the gray, to explore both and rather than either or. And one of the clear ways that this was made apparent to me when I first came was in uni writing essays. Where I was told, because I had only been through the American education system, I was told, don't write essays the American way. Which is you pick a side and you argue the hell out of it in a polemical way. And you say, this is why I'm right. And they said, no, you're going to get a really low score. In the UK, what you do is you say, well, there's this side. And then there's this side. And I can see how both sides work. But I think I'm more inclined to be on this side. But I also understand the other side. And so that was really interesting for me to be like, oh, that is actually, again, suits my temperament and my personality more. It allows me to explore different options without being pigeonholed either or, as I think what I get the sense is in the States, that is often the case. It's like, are you for this side or for that side? You have to immediately pledge your allegiances to one side. Whereas in the UK, there is space, this is my personal experiences, there's space to explore which side, and then you can pick, which I really appreciate.
So, Justin, thank you so much. Please give us a thumbs up.
Subscribe to his channel.
Yes, so leave a comment, say whatever you want to say in the comment section. No hate comments, but yes. So thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.